Welcome to the YouTube channel, Contact Center Knowledge Hub, your one-stop solution for expert guidance, best practices, and actionable knowledge in the world of contact centers. Explore, learn, and enhance contact center skills. Let's discuss forecasting method, time series regression in depth. In this section, we'll introduce time series regression. Time series regression is a powerful forecasting method that combines regression modeling with time series principles. We use it when our dependent variable, y, is a metric that changes over time and is influenced by multiple factors such as trend, a long-term upward or downward movement, seasonality, repeating patterns by hour, day, week, or month, events, campaigns, holidays, outages, launches, external drivers like marketing spend, prices, staffing, weather, or economic indicators, and autocorrelation, which is the memory behavior of the series. Today's value being related to yesterday's or last week's value. Time series regression bridges the gap between traditional regression, which focuses on drivers and cause-effect, and pure time series models like ARIMA, which focus mainly on patterns in time. The big advantage is this. Time series regression not only tells us what the forecast will be, it also helps us explain why the forecast behaves that way. We can say things like, volume is increasing because of trend plus a marketing push, and next month is higher due to seasonality and a holiday event. In other words, time series regression gives us a driver-based, time-aware forecast that combines the strength of regression with the strength of time series, making it ideal for realistic, explainable forecasting in operations and contact centers. In this section, let's understand what time series regression is. Time series regression is a technique that models a dependent variable over time by bringing together three key elements. First, it includes time-based components such as trend and seasonality. Trend captures the long-term upward or downward movement in the metric, while seasonality captures repeating patterns like weekly or monthly cycles. Second, it uses external explanatory variables also called regresses. These can include marketing activity, website traffic, weather, price changes, special events, and other business drivers that influence the metric over time. Third, it can include autoregressive terms, which are past values of the same metric, y, if needed. This allows the model to capture memory behavior, where today's value is related to yesterday's or last week's value. The general form of a time series regression model is y sub t equals a plus b1 times x1 at time t plus b2 times x2 at time t, and so on, up to bn times xn at time t plus epsilon sub t. Here, y sub t is the metric at time t, for example, call volume this month. x1 sub t up to xn sub t are the regresses at time t, things like marketing spend, traffic, staffing, or price at that same time. Epsilon sub t is the error term, which may still show autocorrelation, meaning the errors themselves can be related across time. The key point is this. Unlike simple regression, time series regression must explicitly handle temporal patterns. It doesn't just look at drivers, it also respects the time order, trend, and seasonality of the data. That's what makes time series regression such a powerful tool for realistic, time-aware forecasting in operations and contact centers. Let's start with the first type of time series regression, trend regression. Time series regression comes in several powerful variants, and trend regression is the most basic and intuitive one. The idea of trend regression is simple. It captures the overall growth or decline over time. This trend can be linear or with extensions, nonlinear. The basic trend model is written as y sub t is equal to a plus b times t plus epsilon sub t. Here, y sub t is the value of the metric at time, a is the intercept, or baseline level. B is the trend slope, showing how much y changes per time step. T is the time index, for example, month number or week number. And epsilon sub t is the error term, capturing random noise. If the metric shows an upward trend. If B is negative, the metric shows a downward trend. Trend regression is often the starting point for time series forecasting, because it tells us whether our contact center metric, like volume or AHT, is fundamentally drifting down or staying flat over time. The second type of time series regression is seasonal dummy regression. This method is used to capture repeating cycles in your data. For example, patterns that repeat every month, every week, or every day. The model looks like this. Y sub t is equal to A plus B times D January plus B times D February, and so on, up to B times D November plus epsilon sub t. Here's what that means in simple terms. Y sub t is the value of the metric at time t. I is the overall baseline level. D January, D February, D November are dummy variables for each month. A dummy variable is 1 if we are in that month, and 0 otherwise. The coefficients B tell us the seasonal effect of each month, compared to a reference month that is left out, usually December. Epsilon sub t is the random error term. In practice, seasonal dummy regression is very useful when your contact center metrics show clear monthly, weekly, or daily seasonality. For example, higher volumes in January and March, lower in May, or specific weekdays that are always busy. By using seasonal dummies, we can quantify these repeating patterns and build forecasts that respect the natural rhythm of the business calendar. The third type of time series regression is regression with autoregressive errors, also called AR terms. This approach is used to account for autocorrelation. In other words, when today's value is related to yesterday's value, the model can be written as y sub t is equal to a plus b times x sub t plus phi1 times y sub t minus 1 plus epsilon sub t. Let's break that down. Y sub t is the value of the metric at time t. A is the intercept or baseline level. B times x sub t is the effect of an external driver at time t. For example, marketing spend, traffic, or price. Phi1 times y sub t minus 1 is the autoregressive term. It says that part of today's value comes from yesterday's value of the same metric. Epsilon sub t is the remaining error. By including y sub t minus 1 on the right-hand side, we explicitly model the memory behavior in the series. The fact that the system does not reset each period. When this kind of regression is fully integrated with an ARIMA framework, it is commonly known as ARIMAX. Autoregressive integrated moving average with exogenous variables. In practice, this means we get the best of both worlds. Regression on external drivers and autoregressive structure to capture the way the metric depends on its own past. This type of model is especially powerful when your contact center metric shows strong persistence over time, as well as being influenced by business drivers like campaigns, staffing, or pricing. The fourth type of time series regression is distributed lag models. We use distributed lag models when past values of a predictor continue to affect the future value of y over several time periods. The model looks like this. Asterisk asterisk y sub t is equal to a. b0 times x sub t. b1 times x sub t minus 1. b2 times x sub t minus 2. Epsilon sub t asterisk asterisk. Here's what that means. Y sub t is the metric at time t. X sub t minus 1, x sub t minus 2 are the current and past values of the same predictor. b0, b1, b2 are the coefficients that tell us how strong the impact is at each lag. Epsilon sub t is the error term. In plain language, the model is saying, today's y is driven by today's x, plus yesterday's x, plus the day before's x. A classic example is marketing impact on call volume. When you launch a campaign, you might see an immediate spike in calls on the same day, some additional calls the next day, and a smaller tail of impact on the second day after. A distributed lag model allows us to spread or distribute the effect of a single driver across multiple future periods. This is extremely useful in contact centers and operations, because many drivers like marketing, emails, or notifications don't just impact one day. They influence several days in a row, and the model needs to capture that full pattern. The fifth type of time series regression is dynamic regression, also known as state space regression. This approach takes regression and combines it with Kalman filters to create adaptive, self-updating forecasts. In a normal regression, models are fixed once we train the model. But in dynamic regression, the model assumes that relationships can change over time. The Kalman filter continuously updates the hidden state. Things like trend, seasonal strength, or driver impact. As new data arrive, practically, this means the forecast can learn on the fly. If customer behavior shifts, if a new channel grows quickly, or if seasonality patterns change, the model gradually adapts instead of becoming stale. Because of this, adaptive dynamic regression is widely used in advanced WFM and AI forecasting systems, where conditions are changing and we need forecasts that are not just accurate today, but keep updating themselves as tomorrow's data comes in. In simple terms, think of them as regression plus a smart autopilot, continuously tuning the model so your forecasts stay relevant, responsive, and up to date. Let's now understand why time series regression is different from normal regression. In ordinary regression, we make a few key assumptions. First, we assume independence of observations. Each data point is treated as if it has nothing to do with the others. Second, we assume no inherent time order. The model doesn't really care whether a record came from January or July. It just sees a cloud of points. Third, we assume that errors are random. The residuals should not show any pattern or structure. But time series data breaks these assumptions. Real operational data over time typically has trend. The metric drifts upward or downward over months or years. Seasonality, repeating daily, weekly, or monthly cycles. Autocorrelation, today's value is often related to yesterday's value. The series has memory. Structural changes, step changes when you launch a new product. Change pricing or shift strategy. Holiday effects, spikes or dips around festivals, paydays, or year-end. Business cycles, longer-term up and down swings driven by the economy or industry. If we ignore all of this and just run a normal regression, we get biased coefficients, misleading significance tests, and overconfident forecasts. Time series regression is designed specifically to handle these patterns. It models trend explicitly, seasonality through dummies or time functions, autocorrelation via lag terms or ARIMA components, and events, holidays, and structural breaks through dedicated variables. In simple terms, normal regression treats data points as independent dots. Time series regression treats them as a connected story over time, capturing the rhythm, memory, and shocks of your business. That's why, for forecasting in contact centers and operations, we rely on time series regression, not plain regression. When a metric clearly evolves over time and carries these rich temporal patterns. Let's look at the trend component in time series regression. The trend describes the overall direction of a metric over time, whether it is steadily increasing, decreasing, or flattening out. Trend can be modeled in several ways. 1. Linear trend. The simplest form is a linear trend, written as y sub t is equal to a plus bt. Here y sub t is the value at time t. A is the starting level. B is the slope, how much y changes for each time step. A positive B means the metric is growing linearly. A negative B means it is declining linearly. 2. Polynomial trend. When growth is curved rather than straight line, we use a polynomial trend. For example, y sub t is equal to a plus bt squared. The t squared term allows the trend to bend. It can accelerate, decelerate, or form an S-shape over time. This is useful when the business grows quickly at first and then slows, or starts flat and then speeds up. 3. Exponential trend. For fast-growing businesses, especially in digital or startup environments, we sometimes see exponential growth, where the series increases by a fixed percentage rather than a fixed amount. In those cases, we model trend using exponential or log-linear forms, which capture compound growth much better than a straight line. In summary, the trend component is a core building block of time series regression. By choosing the right form, linear, polynomial, or exponential, we can accurately represent how our contact center metric is moving over time, before we even layer on seasonality and external drivers. Next, let's talk about the seasonal component in time series regression. Seasonality means repeating patterns that occur at regular intervals. For example, day of week, month of year, or even time of day. In contact centers, this could be Mondays always being busy, end of month spikes, or festive season peaks every year. We can handle the seasonal component in 3 main ways. 1. Dummy variables. We create on-off flags for each season. For example, a dummy for Monday, a dummy for Tuesday, and so on. When the day is Monday, the Monday dummy is 1 and all others are 0. The model then learns a separate lift or drop for each day or month. 2. Fourier terms, sine and cosine cycles. Instead of many dummies, we can use sine and cosine functions to create smooth, wave-like seasonal curves. This is very useful for strong, smooth seasonality, such as hourly or daily cycles in digital traffic. 3. Seasonal lags. We can also include seasonal lag terms, like y sub t minus 12 for yearly seasonality, or y sub t minus 7 for weekly patterns. This means today's value is partly explained by what happened exactly one season ago. A simple example of a seasonal regression model is y sub t is equal to a plus bt plus sd Monday plus sd Sunday. Here, A is the baseline, bt is the trend over time. D Monday up to D Sunday are dummy variables for each day of the week, and S to S are the seasonal effects for each day. This model allows us to say things like, Mondays are typically 15% higher than the baseline, Wednesdays are flat, and Sundays are 20% lower. In short, the seasonal component helps our forecasts respect the natural weekly or monthly rhythm of the business, instead of drawing a straight line through what is clearly a repeating pattern. Now let's look at event or shock variables in time series regression. These variables are used to capture sudden, one-time or short-term impacts that normal trend and seasonality cannot explain. Typical examples include a product launch, a promotion or marketing campaign, a system outage or major technical issue, a holiday or public holiday, a festival period, or large COVID-like disruptions that temporarily change behavior. We represent these events using dummy variables. A value of 1 when the event is active and 0 when it is not. A simple model with event variables might look like this. Y sub t is equal to A plus B t plus B holiday sub t plus B promo sub t. Here, A is the baseline level. BT captures the underlying trend over time. Holiday sub t is a dummy that becomes 1 during holiday periods. Promo sub t is a dummy that becomes 1 during promotion days. B and B tell us how much extra volume or impact these events add on top of trend. For example, if B is 2000, it means during holidays, we expect about 2000 additional units such as calls or orders are compared to normal days, all else equal. By including event and shock variables, time series regression can separate regular business patterns from special one-off impacts, making our forecasts more accurate and our explanations much more credible in front of stakeholders. Now let's talk about autoregressive terms in time series regression. Many time series show memory. Today's value is often linked to yesterday's value. We capture this memory using autoregressive, or AR, terms. A simple autoregressive model is y sub t is equal to phi times y sub t minus 1 plus epsilon sub t. Here, y sub t is the metric at time t. Y sub t minus 1 is the previous period's value. Phi is the autoregressive coefficient, showing yesterday influences today. And epsilon sub t is the random error. If phi is close to 1, the series has strong persistence. Shocks today carry forward strongly into tomorrow. If phi is near 0, there is little memory. When we add to our regression models, we are telling the model, don't just look at drivers and events, also remember where the series was last period. Including autoregressive terms helps to reduce autocorrelation in the residuals, which is a key requirement for valid statistically reliable forecasts. In simple words, AR terms make the model time-aware, honoring the fact that our business metrics often don't reset each day. They evolve smoothly from their own past. Next, let's talk about external drivers, also called exogenous regressors. These are variables that lie outside the time series itself, but still influence the behavior of Y. In other words, they are external factors that push your metric up or down. Common examples include marketing spend campaigns, ads, and promotions that drive extra demand or traffic. Google search traffic, how often people are searching for your brand or product online. Number of active customers, a larger base usually means more calls, more orders, and more interactions. Digital adoption percentage, the share of customers using apps, self-service, or bots, which can reduce or shift voice volumes. Temperature or weather are very relevant for utilities, travel, food delivery, and retail, where hot or cold days can dramatically change demand. In time series language, these external drivers are called X variables or exogenous variables. When we build a model that combines ARIMA time series structure and these external X regresses, we call it ARIMAX, autoregressive integrated moving average with exogenous variables. If we also include seasonality, the model becomes SARIMAX, seasonal ARIMA with exogenous regresses. These hybrid models are very powerful because they capture trend, seasonality, and autocorrelation through the ARIMA part, while also quantifying the impact of business drivers like marketing, customers, and weather through the regression part. In short, external drivers turn a plain time series forecast into a driver-based forecast. One that not only says what will happen, but also explains which levers are pushing Y up or down, and by how much. Now let's talk about autoregressive terms in time series regression. Many time series show memory. Today's value is often linked to yesterday's value. We capture this memory using autoregressive, or AR, terms. A simple autoregressive model Y sub t is equal to phi times Y sub t minus 1 plus epsilon sub t. Here, Y sub t is the metric at time t. Y sub t minus 1 is the previous period's value. Phi is the autoregressive coefficient, showing yesterday influences today. And epsilon sub t is the random error. If phi is close to 1, the series has strong persistence. Shocks today carry forward strongly into tomorrow. If phi is near 0, there is little memory. When we add to our regression models, we are telling the model, don't just look at drivers and events, also remember where the series was last period. Including autoregressive terms helps to reduce autocorrelation in the residuals, which is a key requirement for valid statistically reliable forecasts. In simple words, AR terms make the model time-aware, honoring the fact that our business metrics often don't reset each day. They evolve smoothly from their own past. Now let's talk about autoregressive terms in time series regression. Many time series show memory. Today's value is often linked to yesterday's value. We capture this memory using autoregressive, or AR, terms. A simple autoregressive model Y sub t is equal to phi times Y sub t minus 1 plus epsilon sub t. Here, Y sub t is the metric at time t. Y sub t minus 1 is the previous period's value. Phi is the autoregressive coefficient, showing yesterday influences today. And epsilon sub t is the random error. If phi is close to 1, the series has strong persistence. Shocks today carry forward strongly into tomorrow. If phi is near 0, there is little memory. When we add to our regression models, we are telling the model, don't just look at drivers and events, also remember where the series was last period. Including autoregressive terms helps to reduce autocorrelation in the residuals, which is a key requirement for valid statistically reliable forecasts. In simple words, AR terms make the model time-aware, honoring the fact that our business metrics often don't reset each day. They evolve smoothly from their own past. Now let's move to step 2 in the time series regression process. Select the regresses, the X variables that will explain a metric over time. In time series regression, we typically consider 4 main types of regresses. First, the time index. We include a time variable, t, to capture trend. This could be month number, week number, or day number. It lets the model learn whether the metric is rising, falling, or stable as time moves forward. Second, seasonal dummies. These are on-off flags for seasons such as day of week or month of year. For example, a dummy for Monday, a dummy for Tuesday, or separate dummies for January, February, and so on. Seasonal dummies help the model learn that Mondays are always busy, Sundays are always light, or December is always peak. Third, external driver variables. These are business drivers outside the series that influence Y, such as marketing spend, website traffic, number of active customers, digital adoption, or weather. Including these variables makes the forecast driver-based. So we can explain why the metric moves, not just how. Fourth, lag variables. We may include past values of Y or X as regresses. For example, Y at time t-1 or X at time t-1 and t-2. These lag variables capture autocorrelation and delayed effects, such as a campaign whose impact lasts for a few days, or a series where today's level depends partly on yesterday's level. So in step 2, our job is to carefully choose a time index for trend, seasonal dummies for repeating patterns, external drivers for business impact, and lag variables for memory and delayed effects. These regresses form the backbone of the time series regression model and determine how well it will explain and forecast our metric. Now we move to step 3 in the time series regression process. Build the initial regression model. After selecting our regresses, we put them together into a first-pass equation. A typical starting model might look like this. Asterisk asterisk y sub t is equal to a plus bt. SD Monday plus SD Sunday. C x sub t plus epsilon sub t asterisk asterisk. Let's unpack this in simple language. Y sub t is our metric at time t, for example, daily call volume. I is the baseline level of the series. BT captures the trend over time, are calls slowly rising or falling. D Monday, D Sunday are dummy variables for each day of the week. The coefficients S to S measure how much each day is above or below the baseline. This is how we model weekly seasonality. X sub t is an external driver, such as marketing spend or active customers. The coefficient C tells us how strongly that driver affects Y. Epsilon sub t is the error term, capturing random noise we can't explain yet. In this step, we are not trying to make the model perfect. We are building a clean, sensible starting point that includes a trend term, seasonal dummies, and at least one business driver. Once this initial model is fitted, we'll inspect its performance and diagnostics in the next steps, and then refine it by adding or removing variables, and by dealing with autocorrelation or structural breaks. So, step 3 is all about getting that first working time series regression equation that turns our visual understanding into a quantitative model. Next is step 4 in the time series regression process. Check the residuals. Residuals are simply the errors, the difference between the actual values and the model's fitted values. For our model to be statistically sound, the residuals must behave like pure random noise. In practice, we want 3 things. Number 1, residuals should be uncorrelated. There should be no pattern over time in the errors. If today's residual is positive, tomorrow's residual should not systematically follow it. If we see autocorrelation in residuals, it means the model has missed some time-based structure. Number 2, residuals should be roughly normally distributed. When we plot a histogram or a normal QQ plot, the residuals should look bell-shaped, with most errors near zero, and fewer large positive or negative errors. This supports valid confidence intervals and significance tests. Number 3. Residuals should look like white noise. White noise means no visible pattern when we plot them over time. No trend, no seasonality, no clustering. Just random scatter around zero. If our residuals do not meet these conditions, for example, if we see autocorrelation spikes on the ACF plot or clear patterns in the residual chart, that's a red flag. In that case, we typically include autoregressive AR terms directly in the regression or move to a more advanced model such as ARIMAX or SARIMAX, which combines regression with ARIMA time series structure. So, step 4 is our quality control checkpoint. If the residuals behave like uncorrelated, normal white noise, we can trust the model. If not, we refine the model until the residuals stop telling us a story. Finally, we come to step 5 in the time series regression process. Forecast future values. Once the model is cleaned, validated, and residuals look good, we are ready to push it into the future. To generate forecasts, we must provide the model with future inputs. Specifically, we need 4 things. First, future time index. We extend our time variable, t, into the forecast horizon. For example, the next 12 weeks or 24 months. This lets the model project the trend forward. Second, future seasonal dummies. We know in advance which days will be Mondays, which months will be December, and where weekends and weekdays fall. So we can generate future seasonal dummies to keep the weekly or monthly pattern in the forecast. Third are planned events. We feed in a calendar of future events and shocks, upcoming promotions, product launches, holidays and festivals, any planned system changes. For those dates, the event variables are set to 1. On other dates, they remain 0. This ensures our forecast reflects known future campaigns and disruptions. Fourth, forecasts of external variables. For exogenous drivers like marketing spend, active customers, digital adoption, or weather, we either use business plans, for example, planned spend or expected customer counts, or use separate models to forecast those drivers. These future values of X are then fed into the time series regression. With these inputs in place, future time index, seasonal pattern, planned events, and external driver forecasts, the model produces Y-hat for each future period. A complete, driver-based, time-aware forecast. In short, step 5 turns our time series regression from a historical explanation tool into a forward-looking planning engine, supporting WFM, budgeting, capacity planning, and scenario analysis. Our final step in the time series regression process is step 6, validate the model. Building a forecast is not enough. We must make sure the model is accurate, robust, and statistically sound before we rely on it for decisions. We do this using a combination of error metrics and statistical tests. First, MAPE, mean absolute percentage error. MAPE tells us, on average, what percentage error we are making between forecast and actual. It's very intuitive. For example, a MAPE of 8% means we are typically off by about 8%. Second, RMSE, root mean squared error. RMSE penalizes larger errors more heavily. It's useful when big misses are especially painful, such as under-forecasting peak volumes. Third, a WAPE, weighted absolute percentage error. WAPE is often called the overall percentage error. It compares total absolute error to total volume and is very popular in demand forecasting and operations. Fourth, AIC and BIC. The Akaike Information Criterion and the Bayesian Information Criterion help us compare different models. Lower AIC or BIC values indicate a better balance between fit quality and model complexity. They help prevent overfitting by penalizing models that use too many parameters. Fifth, adjusted R-squared. Adjusted R-squared tells us what proportion of variance in Y is explained by the model after penalizing for extra variables. It's more honest than plain R-squared, especially when we have many regresses. Sixth, autocorrelation tests, such as Durbin-Watson. The Durbin-Watson statistic checks whether residuals are autocorrelated. If the test indicates strong autocorrelation, it means we still have time-based structure left in the errors, and we may need AR terms or an ARIMAX approach. Seventh, the Ljung box test. The Ljung box test looks at autocorrelation across multiple lags. If the test shows that residuals are not random, our model is missing patterns and needs refinement. By combining these tools, MAPE, RMSE, WAPE, AIC, BIC, adjusted R-squared, Durbin-Watson, and Ljung box, we can judge whether our time series regression model is accurate enough for operations, parsimonious, not overfit, and statistically clean, with residuals that behave like white noise. Only after passing these validation checks should we fully trust the model for WFM, budgeting, and strategic planning. Let's look at a real-world contact center use case for time series regression. Call volume forecasting. Our goal is to forecast how many calls we'll receive in each future period, but not just as a black box. We want to understand what is driving that forecast. In this model, we include several key regresses. Trend. This captures the long-term growth or decline in calls as the business expands, matures, or shifts to digital. Month-of-year seasonality. Some months, like March, June, or December, may consistently show higher volumes. Month dummies let the model learn these annual seasonal patterns. Day-of-week seasonality. We also add week-of-day dummies because Mondays and Fridays often behave very differently from weekends. Marketing events. Campaigns, promotions, and product launches often trigger spikes in inbound calls. Event variables help us quantify the lift from each campaign. Customer base. As the number of active customers grows, normal contact volumes usually grow as well. Including customer base ties the forecast directly to portfolio size. Google search trends. Spikes in search volume for our brand or product can signal increased interest or problems, which in turn drive more calls. Holiday dummy variables. Public holidays and festival periods often mean either sharp drops or sharp peaks in calls. Holiday dummies let the model handle these special calendar effects cleanly. By combining all of these regresses in a time series regression model, we get a forecast that not only predicts how many calls we'll receive, but also explains why the forecast moves up or down. This is a key difference from a pure ARIMA model, which relies mostly on past values of call volume and treats the future as a continuation of the same pattern. Time series regression gives us a driver-based call volume forecast, one that links volumes to trend, seasonality, marketing, customer base, search behavior, and holidays. That makes it far more useful for WFM planning, budgeting, and what-if scenario analysis. because we can clearly see how each lever impacts the future workload. Now let's look at a second powerful contact center use case for time series regression. Average handle time, or AHT, forecasting. In this model, our goal is to forecast how AHT will evolve over time, not just as a flat number, but as a result of learning, complexity, automation, and product change. We typically use the following regresses. First, learning curve, trend. Over time, as agents gain experience, improve navigation, and learn better talk tracks, AHT often declines, but not in a straight line. Early on, it may drop quickly, then the improvement slows. This is why we often model AHT trend with a polynomial. For example, a combination of time, t, and time squared, t superscript 2, to capture that curved learning effect. Second, complexity index. Not all calls are equal. As issue complexity increases, more systems, more steps, more investigation, AHT naturally goes up. A complexity index scores how difficult interactions are, and the regression model quantifies how much extra time each step up in complexity adds. Third, automation percentage. As we deploy bots, self-service, scripts, and workflow tools, simple portions of the call are automated and agents can handle tasks faster. Higher automation percentage is usually associated with lower AHT. The model learns how much each 10% increase in automation reduces handle time on average. Fourth, new product releases. Whenever a new product or feature is launched, both agents and customers go through a learning curve. In the first few weeks or months, this often pushes AHT up. As agents look up information, handle more questions, and deal with unknown scenarios, we capture this using dummy variables or event flags for launch periods. Fifth, agent experience score. We can include an experience or proficiency score for the frontline team. As average experience rises through training, tenure, and performance coaching, AHT tends to stabilize or fall. The model translates changes in this experience score into expected changes in handle time. Because AHT often follows a curved learning pattern, we frequently use a polynomial trend, combining t and t superscript 2, rather than just a straight line. This allows the time series regression model to reflect rapid early improvement and slower gains later on. The result is a driver-based AHT forecast that explains how much is due to learning over time, how much is driven by complexity and product changes, and how much improvement we can attribute to automation and agent experience. This is far more useful than a simple historical average, because it ties AHT directly to operational levers that leaders can actually manage and optimize. Now let's look at a third, very practical contact center use case for time series regression. Staffing and SLA forecasting. In this setup, our dependent variable, y sub t, is required FTE at time t. In other words, how many full-time equivalent agents we need in a given period to meet our service level targets. We explain this required FTE using a set of X variables. First, volume forecast. This is the expected number of contacts, calls, chats, or messages in each interval, such as half hour, day, or week. As forecasted volume increases, the model will naturally compute a higher FTE requirement to protect SLA. Second, AHT, average handle time. AHT tells us how long each interaction takes on average. If AHT rises, agents spend more time per contact. So we need more staff to handle the same volume within the desired answer time. Third, shrinkage. Shrinkage captures all the non-productive time. Breaks, meetings, training, absenteeism, system downtime, and so on. Higher shrinkage means less of the paid time is available for handling contacts. So the model will increase required FTE to compensate. Fourth, occupancy targets. Occupancy is how busy agents are. Typically targeted at 80 to 85% to avoid burnout. If we set a lower occupancy target, say 80% instead of 90, we are being more conservative, which means we need more FTE to handle the same workload comfortably. Putting this together, our time series regression model can be written as *** y sub t is equal to required FTE as a function of volume forecast at time t, AHT at time t, shrinkage at time t, and the chosen occupancy target ***. This gives us a driver-based staffing forecast. If volume goes up, FTE goes up. If AHT creeps up, FTE goes up. If shrinkage is high, FTE goes up. If we tighten occupancy to protect agents, FTE goes up. Unlike a pure Erlang calculation or a black box time series model, this approach makes it very clear which levers are driving staffing needs. That's why time series regression for staffing and SLA forecasting is so powerful for WFM teams. It connects required FTE directly to volume, AHT, shrinkage, and occupancy targets, giving leaders a transparent, explainable model for headcount planning and SLA governance. Now let's look at attrition forecasting over time using time series regression. Here, we are not just asking who might leave. We are asking how will the attrition rate behave month by month, and which operational factors are driving those patterns over time. In this setup, our attrition-related predictors themselves are treated as time series, and we model how they influence Y over time, where Y could be monthly attrition rate or monthly number of resignations. Key time-varying predictors include 1. Workload. As workload increases, more contacts, more cases per agent. Pressure builds up. Sustained high workload over multiple weeks or months often leads to fatigue and burnout, which can push attrition up. Time series regression allows us to see how rising workload over time impacts the attrition trend. 2. Overtime hours. Overtime is a strong stress signal. If overtime hours are high for several months in a row, agents may feel overworked and undervalued, increasing the chance they will start looking for another job. By modeling overtime as a time series, we can quantify how periods of sustained overtime shift attrition rates in subsequent months. 3. Seasonality, festive months, and peak periods. Attrition is often seasonal. Festive months, year-end, or post-bonus periods can show spikes in resignations as people reevaluate their jobs, relocate, or move to new opportunities. We capture this with seasonal dummies, such as flags for festive months, year-end, or post-appraisal periods, and let the model learn how much higher attrition is in those windows compared to normal months. 4. Stress index. A stress index can be constructed from surveys, sentiment analytics, adherence issues, or wellness indicators. When the stress index rises over time, it usually precedes higher attrition. Time series regression allows us to treat this index as a driver that evolves month by month and measure how changes in stress levels translate into changes in attrition. Putting it all together, we build a model where attrition at time t is explained by workload at time t, overtime hours at time t, seasonal dummies for festive or risky months, and stress index at time t. This gives HR and operations a time-aware, driver-based attrition forecast. Instead of being surprised by sudden spikes in resignations, they can see them coming. Because the model is watching workload, overtime, seasonality, and stress as they evolve over time. That means leaders can proactively launch wellness initiatives, hiring plans, and workload fixes before attrition peaks, turning attrition from a reactive crisis into a manageable, forecastable risk. Now let's look at customer demand forecasting with external variables. One of the strongest applications of time series regression. In many industries, contact center demand is not driven by time alone. It is strongly influenced by external conditions like weather, outages, or marketing campaigns. Time series regression lets us bring these external drivers directly into the forecast. Let's see 3 practical examples. Example 1: Electricity call center demand and temperature. In utilities, call volume is heavily influenced by outside temperature. During heat waves, more customers may call about high bills, air conditioning load, or supply issues. During cold waves, calls may spike around heating, outages, or tariff concerns. By including temperature as an external regressor, our time series regression model can say, when temperature rises above this level, we expect call volume to increase by this many calls per degree. Example 2: Telecom demand and network outage events. In telecom, demand is closely linked to network performance. A major outage in a city or region can trigger a huge spike in calls and chats as customers report issues or ask for updates. We capture this using outage event variables, dummy variables that turn on when an outage occurs. The model then quantifies. When an outage event is active, call volume increases by this much over baseline. This helps operations and WFM teams plan higher staffing during planned maintenance, or explain after the fact why volume spiked on certain days. Example 3: Retail call volume and campaign spend. In retail and e-commerce, call center demand is strongly tied to marketing campaigns and promotions. When the company increases campaign spend, more customers visit the site, place orders, and call for support, tracking, or returns. By adding campaign spend as a regressor, time series regression can estimate how many extra calls each level of spend generates. That means marketing and operations can work together. If we double campaign spend next month, this is the additional call volume we must be ready for. Across all these examples, the pattern is the same. Customer demand is driven by external variables, not just by past volumes. Time series regression with external drivers allows us to build driver-based demand forecasts, understand how weather, outages, and campaigns impact workload, and run what-if scenarios. What happens if temperature stays unusually high? What if we run a major campaign during a holiday week? In short, this approach transforms demand forecasting from a purely historical exercise into a business-aware forecasting engine that connects external reality directly to contact center volumes. Let's now summarize the key advantages of time series regression, especially for contact center and real-world operations. First, it combines trend, seasonality, events, and drivers in one model. Time series regression doesn't just fit a straight line or a simple curve. It can bring together trend, long-term growth or decline, seasonality, weekly, monthly, or yearly patterns, events and shocks, campaigns, holidays, outages, launches, external drivers, marketing, customer base, digital adoption, weather, and more. That makes it very powerful for real operations, where many forces act at the same time. Second, it offers high explainability. Because the model is regression-based, every term has a clear interpretation. Managers can see exactly why the forecast is going up or down. Whether it's due to more customers, higher marketing spend, a festival season, or a change in trend. This makes the forecast much easier to defend in reviews and governance forums. Third, it integrates external data directly into the forecast. Time series regression can plug in external datasets like search trends, temperature, macro indicators, or campaign plans. That makes forecasts more robust, realistic, and aligned with business reality, instead of being purely backward-looking. Fourth, it improves accuracy versus pure regression. Traditional regression ignores time order and autocorrelation. Time series regression explicitly models trend, seasonality, and sometimes autoregressive structure. By handling this time-based behavior, it usually delivers better accuracy than a plain cross-sectional regression on the same data. Fifth, it is better than pure ARIMA for integrating drivers. Standard ARIMA mainly uses past values of the same series. It struggles to incorporate time-varying external drivers. Unless you move to ARIMAX or SARIMAX. Time series regression, by design, puts drivers at the center of the model. So it's naturally better when you want driver-based forecasting and scenario planning. Sixth, it forms a foundation for modern machine learning models. Many advanced techniques, random forests, XGBoost, gradient boosting, neural networks, and hybrid AI models, build on the same core ideas as regression, combining multiple inputs to explain and predict an output over time. A strong understanding of time series regression makes it much easier to design, interpret, and challenge these more advanced ML systems. So, in summary, time series regression is powerful, explainable, driver-based, and future-ready. It connects operational reality, trend, seasonality, events, and external drivers directly into the forecast, making it an essential tool for WFM, capacity planning, and AI-enabled forecasting. We've seen how powerful time series regression can be, but it also has important limitations you must respect. First limitation, it requires sufficient historical data. Time series regression, especially when modeling seasonality, needs a good length of history. As a rule of thumb, we want at least 24 to 36 months of data to reliably capture yearly patterns and avoid chasing noise. With very short histories, the model becomes fragile and unstable. Second limitation, it is sensitive to incorrect variable selection. The quality of a time series regression model depends heavily on which regressors you choose and how you define them. If you pick the wrong drivers or miss important variables like key campaigns or structural breaks, the model can look statistically okay but still give poor or misleading forecasts. In other words, bad inputs, bad model. Third limitation, it cannot handle nonlinearities unless you transform the data. Basic regression is fundamentally linear in its parameters. If the real-world relationship is strongly nonlinear, we must add polynomial terms, interactions, or other transformations, or move to more flexible machine learning methods like trees, XGBoost, or neural networks. Without these, the model may miss important curvature in the patterns. Fourth limitation, residual autocorrelation, is a serious risk. Even after fitting a regression, the residuals may still show autocorrelation, meaning the model hasn't fully captured the time-based structure. If we ignore this, our significance tests, confidence intervals, and forecasts can all be overconfident. To fix this, we often need to move to ARIMAX or SARIMAX, which explicitly combines regression with ARIMA time series corrections. Fifth limitation, it requires careful human judgment. Time series regression is not a push-button tool. We must make subjective modeling choices, such as which trend form to use, which seasonal structure to include, which events and external drivers to model, and how to treat outliers and structural breaks. Good results depend on domain knowledge plus statistical skill. Two different analysts can build two different models on the same data. So, while time series regression is a powerful and flexible framework, remember its main limitations? It needs enough history. It is sensitive to regressor selection. It struggles with nonlinearity unless we transform or upgrade. Residual autocorrelation can be a hidden danger, and it always demands thoughtful human judgment. Understanding these limitations ensures we use time series regression wisely and know when to augment it with Arimax, Sarimax, or more advanced ML models. To finish this topic, let's look at some important extensions of time series regression that you'll see in advanced forecasting and AI systems. First, ARIMAX. ARIMAX stands for Autoregressive Integrated Moving Average with Exogenous Variables. In simple words, it is regression plus ARIMA errors. We include external drivers like marketing, customers, or weather, and we model the autocorrelation structure of the residuals using ARIMA. This greatly improves performance when the series has strong time dependence. Second, SARIMAX. SARIMAX is seasonal ARIMA with exogenous regressors. It extends ARIMAX by adding seasonal components, for example, yearly or weekly cycles. This is ideal when your data has strong seasonality plus external drivers, such as monthly call volumes driven by both calendar effects and campaigns. Third, dynamic linear models, or DLM. In dynamic linear models, the regression coefficients are allowed to evolve over time, instead of assuming that the impact of a driver is fixed forever. DLMs assume that relationships can slowly change. For example, digital adoption might reduce the impact of marketing on call volume over time. This makes the model adaptive and more realistic in changing environments. Fourth, state space models. State space models are a flexible mathematical framework used by tools like Prophet and models based on Kalman filters. They represent the time series in terms of hidden states, such as underlying trend, seasonality strength, or level, and update these states as new data arrives. Many modern forecasting systems are essentially state space regressions under the hood. Fifth, time series regression trees. These are tree-based models such as decision trees, random forests, or gradient-boosted trees. Applied in a time series context, they can automatically detect nonlinear relationships and interactions between drivers and time, and are widely used in modern ML forecasting tools. Sixth, neural network regression, or deep learning. Deep learning models such as LSTMs, GRUs, and temporal convolutional networks can act as neural regression models over time. They capture both nonlinear relationships and temporal patterns, learning complex structures that classical regression cannot. These are heavily used in large-scale AI forecasting platforms. So, all of these ARIMAX, SARIMAX, dynamic linear models, state space models, time series regression trees, and neural network regression are natural extensions of the time series regression idea. They keep the same core concept. Use drivers plus time patterns to explain and predict why. But they add more power, flexibility, and adaptiveness to handle complex, modern forecasting problems. Let's close this module with the key takeaways on time series regression. First, time series regression forecasts metrics by integrating multiple elements together. Trend, seasonality, events and shocks, and external business drivers such as marketing, customer base, and weather. Instead of treating the series as just a line over time, it connects the forecast to the real-world levers that move the metric. Second, it is more powerful and more explainable than traditional regression. Normal regression ignores time order and autocorrelation. Time series regression respects the time dimension and still keeps the clear, interpretable coefficients that managers understand. You can say exactly why the forecast changed. Trend, seasonality, a campaign, a holiday, or a structural break. Third, it is more flexible and business-aligned than pure ARIMA. ARIMA focuses mainly on past values of Y. Time series regression naturally integrates time-varying drivers, making it ideal for what-if scenarios and planning. What happens if we double marketing? What if our digital adoption jumps by 10%? Fourth, we must always ensure that residuals have no autocorrelation. After fitting the model, the residuals should behave like white noise. No remaining structure, no leftover trend or seasonality. If autocorrelation remains, we need to refine the model or move to ARIMAX's ARIMAX. Fifth, time series regression now forms the backbone of modern forecasting systems, workforce management platforms, capacity and staffing models, and AI-based predictors used in enterprises. Many advanced tools including ML and deep learning solutions are essentially smarter, automated extensions of the same core idea. Use time patterns plus drivers to forecast the future. So, in summary, time series regression is driver-based, time-aware, explainable, and central to serious forecasting, WFM, and AI-enabled planning in modern operations. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel, Contact Center Knowledge Hub. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights. See you in the next video.